And one of our athletes, Reshma, always says that she likes to run because she sees when people cheer for her. And that only happens, she said, whenever she had ran twice in the US. She said the US experience was fabulous. She said, I've never seen that many people coming and cheering for people. So that happens because the family is involved, because the community talks about, oh, our neighbor running, so we should go and cheer for them. And because they do that because they have a passion for sports, not because that person is going to win the medal. Right? It's not because of that. So to improve the situation, we have to pay attention to our female athletes, their sports. We have to go and watch their sports. We have to make sure that our children, our sisters, our brothers, they play sports, we play sports. So it's basically loving the game of sports rather than just competing or rather than just winning a medal. So if you do that, I think that's the key. And that way we'll get endorsement deals for females competitions as well, because it's all about watching. Unless we don't watch the game, unless the viewership don't go high, there's no point in talking about why we don't get the more spectators or things like that.
Hi, and welcome to the Tribes for Good podcast. We are a high-impact platform that helps individuals take action on social and environmental causes that they care about. In each episode, we chat to new guests who are entrepreneurs, leaders, and professors who will be sharing their social impact journey with us. You can follow us on social media at Tribes for Good and listen to the stories of change that will inspire you to join us in creating a better world. We hope you enjoy these chats as much as we do. Today, we have with us Prabhat from Mann Deshi Champions, which identifies and nurtures prospective female leaders in rural India through sport. Welcome to the Tribes for Good podcast.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate for having us.
Can you tell us a little bit about Mann Deshi Champions and why you started it?
So it's very interesting because Mandeshi, what Mandeshi means is, I'll just give you a meaning of what it means. Man is a river which flows by our area, and Deshi is like indigenous. So in a way, it tells us the champions which are growing next to this bank of the river. So I like the whole kind of narrative. Before I start into getting into what we do at Mandeshi and how we started it, I'll just give you a landscape, where we are located at. So for the listeners, I think it would be great to understand and imagine where this program is running. So we are in India, in rural part of Maharashtra. The block, the tehsil, which we live in, is called Mann, which is the river as well. And most of the people who live on the Mandeshi tehsil are coming from nomadic tribal communities. They're shepherds, they're sugarcane cutters, and it's a landscape which have a grassland. So you'll see a lot of sheep, you'll see predators as wolves and hyenas. So even if you go from our office about 4 kilometers away, in the evening, you'll be able to spot some hyenas and wolves as well. So it's a very interesting landscape where you see a lot of good runners coming out of it because it's very hot, it's a dry land, and you can just run flat long distances. So you can see long distance runner coming out of it. And why I started it, why we came up with the sports idea. When I was growing up, I grew up in a rural part, right? I went to a school which is a Marathi medium. It's a local language. It's a government school. And interestingly, about 20 years ago, my school had only 3 rooms. So in 3 rooms, we would have from 1st grade to 8th grade in those 3 rooms. And the reason behind that was because the school didn't have a grant. So there was no financials coming in. And school had a pretty innovative system. Now people kind of like this system because that time, of course, that was not used as innovative. It was there because school needed money, where children do farming as well. Now you'll see like in the US and a couple part of California and other places, you have places where school want to introduce farming. They want children to get close to the earth and soil and things like that. So we were doing that back 20 years ago because school needed money. So we would pick cotton, we would plant crops like corn and guavas and things like that. It was a very interesting lifestyle, but we were never introduced to organized sports. Most of the children in school will always be barefoot because no shoes available. And from the beginning, there was a gap between boys and girls. So boys went to different rooms, girls went to different rooms. So there's always the inequality from the birth, right? It happens long before even they go to school, from the families, from the communities. Now going back to the school system, the school where we were, we had to go to the farming for 3 days. So what we would do is we will jump in a water wells, we will swim lakes, we will climb trees. And interestingly, we never knew that these are a competition, right? Diving is a competition, swimming is a competition, climbing, and now 2021 Olympics is going to be, again, diving is a part of the competition as well. Climbing is a part of the competition. So now what we used to do is we used to swim lakes to catch ducks. We used to climb trees to get beehives. And jumping just made us have that thrill, have that adventure. So life was very simple and also innovative in a way. Though we didn't know that these are sports, but we were doing it. And I was very athletic. I wanted to be part of the sporting culture, which I never knew about. I was fortunate to go to the US. My mom was there in Yale University. She had started India's first rural women's bank and business school for women as well. So she was there in Yale University, and then US Consulate had this exchange program where I was able to go and do the middle school and high school. That the first time it gave me kind of introduction to real sports. It gave me introduction to basketball, swimming. I participated in high school and collegiate teams. It showed me that sports is not just about competing. Sports is about getting confidence, understanding that self-esteem, having your self-dignity, and building your character. Then it also taught me that I can make a lot of friends. I can make the decision, I can make those choices. That kind of shaped my life. Even though I did my master's from the business and finance in Georgetown and all the places in the US and everything, I worked in a bank as well in the beginning, HSBC and places like that. But I always wanted to, somehow I was not happy there. I wanted to be in sports. I wanted to be with children. So I decided to become a sports agent. And after becoming a sports agent, I worked with a lot of NBA athletes. I worked with track and field athletes. I helped them do endorsement deals. I was having a great life. But at the end of the day, my village is in India. And the children who are here still climbing trees, still swimming, and still not introduction to sports. Still, there's a huge gap between boys and girls. So I thought that maybe sports have changed my life. This is just a thought process, right? I didn't know this is going to happen like this. I thought, why don't I start giving opportunity for these young girls and boys to play sports? And I kind of started the program in 2010. I was handling it in the beginning from the US, but after that, I moved permanently and I left whatever my agency and stuff like that in the US. And I was still involved a little bit, but now I'm doing this as a full-time, and we have incredibly had come on to the level where we are trying to now make a policy level changes in the state of Maharashtra in education and sports way. So the idea is giving them opportunity. And one of the reasons we started it, I'll also give you one example why we kind of put a lot of pressure on young girls playing sports. I was traveling throughout Maharashtra. I think it was in middle of 2012, 2013. And I was traveling kind of just to meet different village people, meet teachers, meet students, meet government officers, meet politicians, just to understand and hear the stories. But I was not there to teach them anything. I just wanted to hear the stories from them. I stopped by one place where their labor workers were cutting sugarcane. And when I stopped by, there was a young girl who was about 13 to 14 years old cutting sugarcane. Sugarcane cutting is a tough job where you are 8 to 9 hours in a day in 40 to 45 degrees. That's like 115 to 120 Fahrenheit. You're working hard. You're cutting sugarcane. You've never been to school before. So all that, and there are always venomous snakes in the sugarcane field, like cobras, crate, vipers. So you have to be very careful with those things. So you have to be very sharp as well. With all this going on, she stopped for lunch in the middle of the day. And when I was there, she was playing with a ball which is made of clothes. I've told this story so many times, but it is so much impactful and powerful because a small girl can teach you a lot of things. She's playing with that ball. She's so happy. And when I asked her name, she said Nakusa. Nakusa means unwanted daughter, unwanted child. So parents gave her their own daughter named Nakusa. And I don't want to go. I've heard this name before. It was not shocking for me. But what's surprising was that even after all this, working 8 hours as a child labor, not going to school, her name is Nakusa, which is unwanted child. Even after all this, she's happy when she's playing with that ball. She's actually playing a dodgeball, the ball which is made of clothes. She's happy. She's smiling. I think that was like a very empowering for me to see that ball can bring that kind of difference in someone's life. And that's the reason I thought about giving opportunity to play sports is very, very important. So yeah, so that was one of the key points to kind of move the program and not just competing, not just high level elite athletes. It's more about having that fun. It's more about giving that kind of experience for them.
That's amazing. You mentioned policy level changes. I'm just wondering, are you seeing any of them being implemented yet?
So yeah, we are in the process right now. We are doing a program with the government. It's called Travel Coach Program, where we're working with about 30 government schools. We take care of their physical education class. In that, we have our travel coach, which goes in a different schools, teach the teacher as well as the children. And in return, we don't take the fees. What we do is we want children to plant trees, and we give the trees, they name those, like, let's say 4 children have planted one tree, they have a name for it, they take care of them. And as a perk, as the tree grows, we give them bicycles, shoes, and things like that. But what program does is that it trains the government school teacher in physical education, it trains the children as well. It has field hockey, it has wrestling and track and field, these 3 sports. But apart from that, for 15 minutes of that time, the program also gives them an opportunity to do plays and skits and do a storytelling sessions where they have to talk about themselves. I want them to talk about what happened last week with them, what happened the day before. Tell a story about your childhood. Or even if you're still a child, then tell a story about some animal you saw, like hyena you saw the other day. So tell us about that. We also make them do plays and skits around real issues where women are not getting treated equally, where if woman becomes a widow, the things are different for her rather than when man loses his wife. Everybody, even including the family, tells him to get remarried. Nobody tells that to a woman. So these kind of things, they do a program skit. So that is there, that is already there. And so we're trying to, improve on that. And that's what the policy level is going to be like. We are working on creating a policy for state government and things like that.
Awesome. And in India and many other countries around the world, sport isn't generally considered a safe option towards a stable career, especially within low-income communities. So how do you overcome the stereotype?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, it's not considered as a stable career. Let me tell you different aspects of this. In India, when you are in college and if you are able to go to college, if you have that kind of privilege, the parents already are determined that they want their children to be doctors, engineers, or something like that. So children are not able to create those dreams, right? So I think that is very, very important part, to create dreams of what you want to become. Not just because your elder sister is doing it, you want to do that. So in our program, what we do is we don't want them to become a great athletes, to be honest. We want them to become whatever they want to. And sports is a part of it. So if a children is of course, if they love the sports, if they want to become an athlete, then it makes sense. But otherwise, they can become a police officer, and they can just become an artist, they can paint, they can draw, they can become a storyteller, whatever they like it. They can become an astronaut. I'll talk about in a second part how we make sure that happens as well. So they have free to do whatever they want. And that's the reason we are trying to do that. Now, sometimes we get also parents telling us that we want our daughter to be in your program so she can become a elite level athlete, become a Olympic medalist. So we always tell them, does that the dream of your daughter? Or this is dream of yours? Because we don't want to have something similar like doctors, engineers. So if you are in sports, you have to become an Olympian. You have to become some elite level athlete or professional athlete. You have to have, because that kind of gives the pressure on children. And that is the real pressure, right? You have seen it across, the Indian parents have seen these things. And I think that is very important, that how do you make this as a career and also make this as a fun and not just a career, but also an opportunity to play. So before that, to make it as a career, we also have a different programs for athletes. Now there is one program which we call Elite Athlete Program, where some athletes are really good and they want to become top level athletes. They want to become an Olympic gold medal. They take part in Mann Deshi Champions Elite Athlete, where they have coached by a high level coaches, where they get high level nutrition, shoes, and all the other athletes also get nutrition and shoes, no doubt. It's just elite athletes have a lot of hard work, a lot of double practices and things like that, physiotherapy, nutrition, and varieties of things are provided to them. Also, normal athletes, normal children who come, everybody gets food, everybody gets that. but it's just that you make that call, you make that, and then children have to make their call by themselves. So we make sure that we tie up with government agencies who can pay them to play for like railways, and India has that kind of system where you can play for government agencies and you can earn money income that way as well. So we make sure that those kind of avenues are also open for them. Apart from that, if they don't want to become an athlete, if they want to become a police officer, if they want to become an astronaut, or they just want to understand physics better, we have this youth development center where we give them opportunity to teach them in those things. So we have interns coming from Georgetown and different universities. They come, they talk to the children, they teach English course, they teach a physics course. We have even scientists coming in and talking about biodiversity. They bring real animals in the class to show them. If they want to learn about history, we take them to the historical places in India with an archaeologist from Duke University. She comes along for 4 days with the children. So I make sure that they get the best out of it. They listen to NPR radio in the US. They listen to TED Talks. So we give them best opportunities. Whatever they can get, it has to be best, and then they choose their own careers. So we also have that kind of platform under the program as well.
If you have a burning desire to make a difference but aren't sure how, join our Young Changemakers program. This part-time virtual program introduces participants to the basics of running a social enterprise, sustainability, social impact, and innovation through group discussions, expert-led workshops, and learn by doing modules. Join us in solving real issues and creating a better world. You mentioned parents. So, we know that sport has the ability to teach us vital life skills. And in communities where parents may not know this, or they may want their children to solely focus on academics as they view this as a sort of like a pathway out of poverty, how do you convince the parents to encourage their children to participate in sport?
Remember I was telling you about the role models, right? So that plays a huge role here because, of course, a lot of parents, I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm facing challenges with one parent who wants his daughter to be married, and she is right now 19-year-old. She is a daughter of a shepherd. So I'll give you her story. She used to herd sheep, and then she went to school for about 6 months of the year. In 6 months, she would just continue herding sheep. Today, the same girl plays field hockey for the state national team. She's the captain of the state national team as well. Her name is Sarita. Sarita, about 10 years ago, was herding sheep, was making sure the sheep don't get eaten by wolves. She knows how to track wolves. These kind of techniques, not a normal person gets that. And I really appreciate that Sarita is one of the girls who knows how to track wolves. Who knows those right things right now in today's world? Nobody. And she becomes the captain of the field hockey team. She becomes one of the breadwinners for some time. But because of COVID now she has been home for about 7-8 months. So see how things change. Sarita is the top level athlete, coming home, not having another opportunity to play, and suddenly pressurized by the family and community. They already, against her will, they already had her getting engaged. Now she's going to get married in November, December, which I was trying to kind of talk to her parents, and I'm still working on that. How can we prolong the marriage? Because she has at least one more year. She's 19 right now. She should have at least one more year to compete at the highest level, and then she can get jobs in the government and things like that. So the idea is there. How do I approach that case? Is I communicate with their village leader, and I also have a contact with those leaders of different villages where our athletes are. So in something similar cases, I can just reach out to him and kind of, tell the parents that this is a great opportunity for, we should not just let it go. So number one learning is that you have to be connected with your village leaders to convey to the parents. Now, the second thing, sometimes it happens automatically. I'll give you another example. Example of Reshma Kevke. Reshma used to herd buffaloes. She's the 5th daughter in the family. She has a younger son. Of course, the father wanted her to have a son. That's why they went for the 6th. Now, father married 4 different women because he thought that it's a woman's problem that he's not getting a son. So you have those characters in the villages as well, right? So when those things are happening, you have Reshma after the school, she was herding buffaloes. She was not, of course, because she's the 4th daughter or 5th daughter, you always have that in the mindset of your family that she's kind of a curse because we want her to have a son. Now, they would not give her almonds if the meat is provided. Only men in the family will eat meat. That's across India in a lot of places. So when that is happening with Reshma, today Reshma, same girl who used to herd buffaloes, now runs marathons. She won New York State Marathon. She won Virginia State Championship in the
Wow.
US. She won San Francisco, one of the small championship in San Francisco. She has won Pune International in India. She's top 10 half marathon runners in India right now. She earns about 30 to 40,000 rupees per month by running marathons, which is like $500 to $600. So now Reshma, who is a buffalo herder, is doing that. She's running the entire family. She's the breadwinner. In her case, automatically the parents have now shifted. So the parents comes to me, the father comes to me that now Reshma, because they come to me and they say that now Reshma eats, we give her almonds, we give her meat. So now she's the first preference. Also, there are a couple of reasons. A, because family is recognized by her name, that they're Reshma's parents. B, she's bringing money. So remember I was saying, getting that dignity important is really crucial important. So today, because of that, the parent have shifted their views. So that kind of change also happens. And the last thing is when you see athletes like Reshma, athletes like Sarita competing on the highest level of going through a lot of challenges, right? Even though Reshma is a top 10 India athlete, Sarita is the captain of the state national team. They work hard. They don't get paid as Indian cricket male athletes get paid. Not at all, right? Not even close to it, not even 0.1% close to it. When all that is happening, they still give their 100%. And when they come home, they still work hard in the field, farm field. They still clean the dishes. They still cook food. I don't think a man can able to do that, including myself. When I was at the competing at the highest level, I considered myself as a top athlete. So I would I would have that kind of privilege and that kind of, and of course, these girls have that confidence. Reshma travels by herself, not speaking a single word of English, but just big smile on her face. She went to the US, she came back by herself. So that is a big and huge achievement for her. But I think when women are doing all these jobs simultaneously, I always believe that they are like a super women, or like, how do you call it? Those Spider-Man, Batman, whatever they are.
Yeah.
So like superheroes. I think they
Yeah.
are like a superhero.
And you mentioned the village leaders. Are they open to these new programs?
Sometimes not. You're right. Because I remember the first time we were giving sports bras and undergarments to girls, people didn't like it because, you have a conservative background of a lot of villages. People always, children have always seen the parents beating, father beating their mother. For them, that's a natural process. For them, they don't think it's wrong. And you won't believe it, at least 51% of Indian women think that getting beaten up by a husband is a normal thing. Is the reason behind that is because that's happening regularly. So, of course, people don't want it. People do challenge us sometimes. But as I said, one of the big aspects of that, when they see role models like these girls, when they're earning incomes, when they're going representing everywhere else, their parents kind of learn that, we are getting recognized because of our daughters. I think that's a huge change. If that happens, then because if I fight with the family members, maybe I can fight with maybe 2, 3. I cannot fight with 50, 100 family members, right? I cannot argue with them because then they say, no, this is how we have done, how our parents, our ancestors have been doing it. Why would we allow our daughter to wear sports bras or sports undergarments? Why would we allow those things? So, those things are there, but I think building the relationship with the parents and the community is very important. I think that's where we are good at. We are able to build a relationship. I speak the same language as the people do, not just by language, but also like they know me well. I try to visit every single village in person, and I make sure that I'm part of them, and I make sure that the entire organization is part of them. It's not someone from outside.
And you mentioned cricket earlier, and we all know that Virat Kohli is the Indian cricket captain. Even I do, and I'm South African. Yet when it comes to female sports captains, such as Mithali Raj, who, for those who don't know, is the ODI female cricket captain of India, we are generally clueless. So how do you think we can change this mindset to one where we celebrate both male and female sports stars?
I think for that, I have a great example of the US. See, I think when was the last World Cup? In 2016. I think the female football World Cup, women's football World Cup was in 2016 or 2015. I don't remember exact date. But the US won that World Cup, football. soccer. So that was really necessary. I believe that they won against Japan, and it was a huge deficit, right? They won, I think, 2-5 or something like that. I think it was necessary for US to win. Now, of course, it's not because I was living in the US by that time, not because of that. I think when US won that World Cup, that was the celebration was across the world. And a lot of US corporate companies were involved in giving endorsement deal and sponsorship for the women athletes. You have Hope Solo, you have Carly Floyd, you have these athletes who are talking about equal pay, who are talking about equal opportunity for men and women, even in the US. When it comes to US is a developed country like Europe is, like Norway, Sweden, all these countries are developed, right? So in those developed countries, you're talking about equal pay. And I think that was very necessary because if US would have not won it, the way football went across the women's across even in India, people were celebrating it because people knew about it. I think that is the reason that was a huge win. A movement of equal pay started. A movement of equality started. So those things, those celebrations are important when these things like this happen. Now, going back to your question that how we bring the women's sports, like in US, they have a Title IX. Title IX is a law in the United States where you have to give equal opportunities in collegiate sports to women as well. Sometimes some smart universities, what they do is, let's see, they don't want to spend more money on women's sports, so they will also remove the men's sports, so they don't have to worry about Title IX. So they do these things as well. But one of the best things the US has been able to do, and I think world will also think about it, not about just winning. See, it's when we always think about winning the medal, that is going to change the whole narrative. When we think about that sports should be played by every single child, sports should be like enriched by every single parent. Sports should be lifestyle, not just for competition, not just for winning. That is when the things are going to change. And that's what you see that in US. I have a friend of mine who is a long jumper and triple jumper. He was one of the top in the US. He got selected for the Olympics in Rio 2016. Now this guy wanted to become he didn't like triple jumping, but he was selected. You won't believe it, he didn't go. He didn't go because he was not, no, he didn't want it to, because he felt like, I'm not happy with this. He wanted to try out for American football. So he tried out, he didn't get selected. That was okay with him. Now he has become a professor. But he's not saying I regret it. He said, I just didn't like the sports. I was good in it, but I didn't like it. I think that kind of mentality is required, right? You need to change that. And that can happen only when you see sports as the opportunity to have fun, sweat for something you love. You cannot see that I want to become just an Olympic gold medalist, but then on the same time, you have to love the sports. You have to be a good human being as well, right? You cannot be an Olympic gold medalist and not be a good human being and not love your sports. You have to do that on the same time. And then US has this collegiate program where you have a March Madness, where you have NCAA. I think that is very strong because you'll see in a university, let's give example of Kentucky. Kentucky is a big basketball program university. In Kentucky, if a grandfather has gone to University of Kentucky, right? Basketball is huge there. When the grandfather was there, now you see grandchildren are going to watch the game in the arena of University of Kentucky. They pay for the tickets with their grandparents, and they say that we are coming here because our grandparents went to the school. They didn't even play, they just went. See that kind of mindset US has. I think that is very important because that's how much you love the game. That's how much you love as a fan. You have to watch the game. You won't believe it. In the American football in the US, the audience inside the stadium, the students or the parents of the students is like 120,000, 125,000 people for college football games. And outside is another 30,000. So you have 150,000, 180,000 people watching Ohio State playing against North Carolina or somewhere else, or Michigan, right? You have college football games this big. You even in the US, you will see athletics events. You have 2,000 people, 3,000 people watching athletics event. That's a huge number compared to any other place in the world. And one of our athletes, Reshma, always says that she likes to run because she sees when people cheer for her. And that only happens, she said, whenever she had ran twice in the US. She said the US experience was fabulous. She said, I've never seen that many people coming and cheering for people. So that happens because the family is involved, because the community talks about, oh, our neighbor running, so we should go and cheer for them. And because they do that because they have a passion for sports, not because that person is going to win the medal. Right? It's not because of that. So to improve the situation, we have to pay attention to our female athletes, their sports. We have to go and watch their sports. We have to make sure that our children, our sisters, our brothers, they play sports, we play sports. So it's basically loving the game of sports rather than just competing or rather than just winning a medal. So if you do that, I think that's the key. And that way we'll get endorsement deals for females competitions as well, because it's all about watching. Unless we don't watch the game, unless the viewership don't go high, there's no point in talking about why we don't get the more spectators or things like that.
Yeah, I also think it's important to have female role models. We seem to have so many male sports role models, but very few female role models. Even like when I went to India, I was in India in November last year, 2019, and people would often ask, oh, where are you from? And I would say, oh, I'm from South Africa, and their faces would light up, and they would always mention famous male cricketers from South Africa, like Jonty Rhodes, Jacques Kallis, Sean Pollock. So sports such as cricket and wrestling, which I know Mandeshi Champions is involved in, are traditionally male-dominated sports, which often exclude sportswomen. So how is Mandeshi getting more women and young girls involved in these types of sports?
So wrestling is actually traditional sports of my state. One of the states. There are two, it's called kabaddi and wrestling. So it's kind of like very close to the people here. And now we have a lot of girls who are doing wrestling. That's incredible. I'll give you an example of another athlete. Her name is Kajal Zadhav. Kajal Zadhav is a part of the Mann Deshi Champions sports program. Her father was a good wrestler, like in that village or maybe that area. So father wanted his son to become a wrestler, of course. And Kajal used to always watch the game, but because father never taught Kajal, his daughter. Now she always watched it. She learned from watching it. She always wanted to participate. One day, without telling her dad, she entered in the wrestling competition in the village, and then she beat a boy who was against. And that's where father realized that, my daughter also has a potential. So after those many years, now the Kajal is 7-time gold medalist. She's been selected for Asian Games. She's one of the top athletes. She can beat the boy in her weight category, any boy I have seen at least. Most of the boys she is in her weight category. So she's equal to boys in a way, right? And now, as you said, yes, you're right. Wrestling is a male-dominated area. But now that movie you mentioned, Dangal, that movie has actually created a lot of awareness. The movie is directed and I think produced by Amir Khan, is an actor, and also he is acted in that movie. And there's the Foghat sisters who are Geeta and Babita Foghat, who are world-class wrestlers. One of them, Geeta Foghat, won a Commonwealth. Both of them won Commonwealth medal, and now they are in wrestling leagues of India as well. And I think because of them, it has happened that a lot of parents are thinking about, before they were hesitating, their daughters are doing good in sports, but they're not able to support them throughout. But because of that movie, things have changed. See, that's when you're exactly right. When you have a role model like that, when you have even parent role models required, right? Not just an athlete. How a parent, in that movie, it has also shown that the guy, he wanted first his son to be a wrestler, but then he couldn't be that level. Then he decided for his daughter. And that happens, right? We should not ignore that fact that, he first chose his son. It's okay because we are living in that society where still it's inequality, right? So unless you celebrate those parents, you have to facilitate those parents. You have to give them a stage where they can talk about their experiences. And sometimes they might say wrong things. It's possible. But at least we cannot have them becoming totally liberal on the second day, right? It can happen. So sometimes they will say some things which are crazy, which are not equal. But I think we have to have open view. I mean, of course, I I don't want inequality. What I'm trying to say is that where sometimes these parents are making efforts to change, but they cannot change in a day. You need time. Maybe they cannot even change when they're older. It's just that even if they do 20% of changes in them, that's the start, right? That's the start we require. So we should celebrate these women, celebrate these parents who are trying to change even a little bit in their lifestyle. I think that's one of the way wrestling has come up.
Yeah, I definitely think that progress is better than perfection. Like perfection is the long-term goal, but we do need to celebrate the progress as we go along. And as our worlds are becoming more online, and especially during the lockdown of COVID-19, how has Mandeshi Champions had to adapt to this? Have you got any online programs?
Yeah, so it was exactly right? We did on several places. We were doing some different initiatives because of COVID-19. Some things were changed, some things we improved, some things we had challenges. So it was all to bunch of together a combination of everything. So especially in the beginning of the COVID-19, we realized that we didn't know how long the lockdown is going to be. When the Prime Minister of India just came and said that from March 21st it's going to happen, we have no clue. Even I'm not sure if the government was that much equipped with a lot of stuff and how things are going to be. So of course, the first thing is the lockdown before even COVID is going to hit is a migrant. Is going to hit the labor workers, the ones whose daily income is on the daily work they do. If they don't get a daily work, if they don't get a daily payments, how are they going to eat food? So we kind of figured that out, and we were able to give a food bags to about 20,000 people who are, especially women, who are labor workers, who are migrants. In that food bag, you have a food material for 10 days. You have a sugar, you have a tea, you have a coffee, you have a soap, you have 3 masks, cotton masks, you have a wheat and all the other stuff. There are like 14 different things which were there. So we gave that in the beginning. So we were able to give in the state of Maharashtra, different places, in total 20,000. We also gave some migrants directly cooked food. So we gave about 15,000 migrants, 15 to 18,000 migrants cooked food. And then as soon as the day passed, the month passed, we realized then now COVID patients are increasing. So we made sure that how do we help the district government, the healthcare system. So we decided to give PPE kits and the N95 masks to healthcare workers. So we did that. We gave them about 5,000 to the district government. Then after that, then when it hits our area, now we realize because our villages are far away from the health facilities. There, we don't have the closest health facilities about 70 miles away. And also that one is full with COVID patients. There are no beds available. I used to get phone calls every single day that, would you be able to get us an oxygen bed? Please try to find out. And these are all underprivileged and poor people who don't have that much of income to go to the private hospitals. And even private hospitals in their area, they're full. So I know about 20 to 25 people who passed away in front of me because they're not able to get the health facility on time. So by considering that, I decided, and of course, team of Mandeshi and all, we decided to why don't we build a hospital, a COVID facility hospital. So right now we are in the process of doing that. We are opening one hospital tomorrow. And then I'm actually very busy with those things as well. And we have, so the hospital will be in partnership with the government. What we are doing is we are providing equipments and necessary like ventilators and stuff like that. And then government is going to run it. One is 300 beds, the other one is 22 beds. So we are doing 2. The 300 bed is going to be open tomorrow. 22 bed will be after 10 days. So
Amazing.
These are like how we shifted the process is that starting from giving food to now giving oxygenated beds in hospitals. And in between also we tested 3,000 people in different villages for COVID because the government was not able to do testing on time. So I came up with the idea why don't we plan to test people, also do awareness. We have vehicles and cars, not a car, but like those tuk-tuks going in different villages and talking about mask is compulsory, necessary. Don't always wear a mask because that's the first thing you can do. Even hospitals and those things are there or may not get oxygen. Right now, oxygen is so bad that yesterday we had ordered 300 oxygen cylinders, we only got 50. And I don't know when the other 250 is going to come because it's all scarcity across the places. So of course, we are trying to change with that. Now coming to the program, these are all kind of relief work. Now the program Mann Deshi Champions, what we are doing is we are first in the beginning, we gave the children also food packages, the athletes, protein packages. We also give them 2 trees to plant so they can plant while they're in COVID. And then we were providing in the beginning in-house training where our coaches went there in their houses and provide them training there in the house.
Okay.
So that was also kind of new and by keeping the distance and stuff like that. Of course, we have Olympic-sized swimming pool, we have 400-meter track, we have a gym. All those things are closed because we cannot operate it at the moment. But maybe in 1 month from now, we'll be starting that as well. And right now, we also have elite athletes. We are taking care of their accommodation, food, and everything. So we give them 5 times chicken, meat, and stuff like that. They live with us. And at the moment, these athletes are getting trained regularly, but we have created like a bubble where how the leagues have created bubble. We also created our own bubbles. They don't get out of the place. They stay there. They practice every single day. They eat food. We provide them everything. So that way we are also doing, and as we're also doing Zoom sessions, Zoom calls with coaches in the US, coaches across the world, international athletes like Olympic medalists are talking to them about how do you build confidence and stuff like that. How do you stay alert? So we are doing that as well. And the other thing is we did the educational conferences where we wanted the teachers government teachers to kind of get aspects of how skill development, how communication can be done. And we had other experts coming on the conference and talking and giving them a workshop on those things, how gender equality is important, how the communication is important, how do you teach students when you don't have the facility, when you don't have the right thing, how do you still make that happen? How do you use innovative ideas and things like that? So we had that was going on as well. And as Mrunal said, with business schools and everything, we did WhatsApp calls. We had WhatsApp video created so people can watch, women can go and watch and things like that. So, we are adopting it and using technology. Our women are now using Zoom and things like that. The athletes are using Zoom. We had nutritionists, physiotherapists coming on the Zoom and talking to the athletes, preparing their plans, literally doing Zoom session for physiotherapy where all athletes were kind of watching the therapists and they were telling what to do. Same thing with the coaches. So we did all those things as well.
And whether people are using like an online training program or an in-person program, the coach behind the program, or say the physiotherapist or the nutritionist behind the program, is really important. And it seems like your coaches do more than train the girls to excel in sport. They have a deeper impact in helping them find a new pathway to a quality life. So how do you go about finding good coaches that fulfill this really important role?
Yeah, the number one thing is our coach is not somewhere, the person is not somewhere from Mumbai or some international coach. We don't have those. We have people who are grown up here, who have people who love sports. We want this, we don't want a huge gap between coaches and the children. We want them to be on the same line. We want the coaches to understand where these children come from. It's not that, because sometimes rural and urban is a different mindset. So we want coaches to understand those things. And we also want to empower the community here. So we always select the coaches from here. We give them training. We give them very good quality training. We in person give them training, and also we have another institutes, they give them training as well. We give them training about good touch, bad touch. We give them training about how do you communicate with a women athlete, how do you understand their problems, how do you, and we want the coaches to speak freely about periods and things like that. It's not some hidden agenda about that. We want them to, this is a part of your life. You just have to figure that out. Athletes should be very welcome to talk to you. Then, remember I was telling you that we have these workshops where they do plays, skits, tell a story. Regardless of who you are like an India representative athlete, you are an Asian medalist, which from our program, you have to be part of the workshop. That's like a compulsory thing. Every alternate day, they take a part in the workshop and they talk about these issues, and coaches are trained to do and conduct the workshop. So the main thing is that we all are in the same level here. We are on the same boat. We want this boat to be shipped now, and that's the whole idea of this thing, that coaches understand the impact, coaches are part of it, coaches have been through the challenges what athletes have been through, so they know how to handle it, they know how to deal with it. And then we also show them bright future in a way, that how do you become a good human being? That is the most important thing.
Yeah, I definitely think that local knowledge and that local connection is really important. The last question I have for you is, what do you hope Mann Deshi Champions will achieve in the future?
Yeah, so that's a really I mean, I get asked this question all the time. Sometimes we have the same answers, sometimes I have different answers. It depends on how things are going in Mandeshi's life and my life and all the other coaches and athletes' life as well. So at the moment, uh, of course, we want our athletes to be in the Olympics. Of course, we want our athletes to compete for the World Championship and things like that. That is there. But more importantly, we want everyone to play sports. So that's the reason we are working with government schools across the state. We are trying to implement those policies. So what we have learned from our experiences in the program, that stories are important, that workshops are important. Those things are important. How sports can be incorporated with all these things together. Those things are really, really matter. And sports is not just about winning. It's about opportunity to play. It's about giving that self-esteem and confidence. So what our mindsets are, if we want to have India, people always say that India is not winning medal. Of course, it will not win a medal. In 2016, we have 1.4 billion population. We've only got 2 medals in the Rio Olympics. The reason behind that is simple. People need to love sports. You cannot just play to win medal. So I think that kind of mindset we want to create. And that's the reason I talked about policy level changes. And that's a bigger dream than just training maybe out of 8,000 next 3 years, we'll be training 50,000. That's not the case. The case is here that how do we have other people also train the way we are training? That will only happen if our policies are incorporated in the government system. And that's the whole plan. And that's the whole idea of moving forward.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much to both of you for joining us on the Tribes for Good podcast, and we wish you the best for the future.
Yeah, thank you. How do I say your name? Kelsey?
Kelsey, yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it having us here. And it was great to speak to you.
Thanks for listening to the Tribes for Good podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media or through our website, www.tribesforgood.com.